Now, Extinction Rebellion has called for supporters to stop making mortgage payments and take out loans with no intention of paying them back. It's an attempt to force the government and banks to take further action towards reducing carbon emissions. The Environmental Campaign Group has urged the government to declare a climate and ecological emergency. It's called for people to engage in financial disobedience by refusing to pay debts, including credit cards and payday loans. The lobbyists have said that the campaign, which they've called Money Rebellion, would aim to donate the money saved by refusing to pay back loans and mortgage repayments to support those worst hit by the negative impacts of climate change. Dr. Gail Bradbrook is one of the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion. Did someone make this up on the back of a cigarette packet, Gail? Afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. No, in fact, Prince Charles said that we need nothing short of a paradigm shift. So what we're doing is really honouring calls from people like Prince Charles.
So you want people to not pay their mortgage and do what? Just sit there and wait for the repossession?
No, what we're asking people to do, if they feel to, is to pledge not to pay their mortgage if thousands of other people would join them, so there'll be safety in numbers.
Right. And what will happen? I mean, but by the time the receivers come in to take their house away, what happens at that point?
Well,
do Extinction Rebellion cough up for a new house?
Well, hopefully what will happen in the meantime is that banks like Barclays Bank, who are the biggest funders of fossil fuels and industrial animal agriculture, will stop doing such behaviour and we can call off the protest. You know, what we've had to do is to scale up because we've been saying we're in an emergency for many years and crimes against humanity are being committed. We have to do something further because the message is not getting through and sufficient action's not being taken. I mean, the government's just come up with a 10-point programme. It's some form of progress, but actually they're spending at least 12 times as much on destructive projects such as HS2 and new roads. They subsidise fossil fuels. We're going in the wrong direction. We're heading for such amounts of warming in the planet that some scientists think that half of the planet will die, billions of people, and that's a crime against humanity, Ian.
So half the planet. When is this predicted for? Because I mean, Extinction Rebellion, you have, with respect to yourself, Gail, you have got a bit of a PhD over there at XR of wheeling out some alarming stats based on nothing.
It's not based on nothing. That's from Professor Johan Rockström of the Potsdam Institute on Climate Impact Research. You know, some scientists think we're on what's called relative concentration pathway 8.5, which is similar to what it was described in a Nature magazine as the Permian mass extinction when 97% of all life died. It's apocalyptic and it's really hard to get over to ordinary people how bad it is. But, you know, I mean... But
if it was that bad, come on, governments would be working on this, wouldn't they?
Well, you would hope so, Ian, wouldn't you? You would hope so, but actually governments are not protecting people. You can see that through this, you know, the COVID crisis is an example of the environmental crisis. We know that in climate change, you're going to get a lot more things like COVID. We're heading for an antibiotics crisis. We've got a crisis in our soil. The waters are polluted. Fresh water's running out across the world. You know, the MOD had a report in June saying that we've by 2030 we could be in a perfect storm of food, water, and energy crises. You know, everybody's raising the alarm, but the problem that we've got is the action that's being taken is just woefully inadequate, and ordinary people are not being protected. So when the crises hit, ordinary people are in such dire straits, and that's what we're saying is we need a grown-up conversation to say, what kind of political economy should we have that protects people, plans for crises, repairs the harm that we've done, repairs the damage, and sets humanity on a different path.
So one of your ways of doing this, then, to go back to where we began, Gail, is to tell people not to pay their debts, don't pay your mortgage, take out a loan and don't pay it back. Come on, there'd be carnage.
I would never tell people what to do, by the way. I would say to people...
Well, that's what the initiative is about, isn't it? Is to try and get people to not pay their mortgages.
We're making an opportunity there for people.
They'll have their houses repossessed, Gail.
Mass civil disobedience.
The bailiffs, have you ever seen those daytime TVs when the bailiffs come round, those programmes? They'll have your flat screen out of there no sooner than you can say rebellion.
people will take this as far as they want. But as I said to you, Ian, what the point here is to build up a big threat, and people will take it as they want. Some Extinction Rebellion people have been to jail. In the past,
Sure.
social changes happened because people went to jail. People did extraordinary things. They did take risks.
But you are trying to use, you're using people as fodder to
I'm
advance
not
your
using
own
anybody
political
as fodder.
ideology, aren't you? What happens if somebody
Absolutely
ends
not,
up
my dear.
homeless? How, would that work for you if somebody's homeless? Because it's all in the name of the cause?
It's up to that person to decide how far to take it. We will have a lot
But
of
if they
support
listen to
throughout
what
the
you're
people.
saying and the alarming headlines you've given us and think, well, I better do something about this, I'll stop paying the mortgage, fast forward a year, and they're living on a park bench. Is that okay?
I don't think that's going to happen to people.
How do you know that's not going to happen? If you're telling people not to pay their mortgage, the upshot generally is they have their house taken away. If they don't pay their loans, then they're penalised in some other way.
If 5,000 to 10,000 people threaten to not pay their mortgage, then the system would have to wake up. That's the point, Ian. I mean, if
no, 5,000 to 10,000 people could have their homes repossessed. Have you thought this through, Gail? Come on, be honest with me.
5,000 to 10,000 people are going to have no homes in this country, Ian, due to mass flooding. I mean, we're in a situation where it requires really difficult choices to be made by people to step forwards for their grandchildren and for the future of the planet.
So if
people do not have a livable future. So some people may take such vast, risks. I mean, I'm at risk of going to jail myself for an action I took, and if that's what happens, then so be it. But I did that with full awareness of what I was doing and why. And anybody who participates in this action, we will give them a full legal and financial briefing, and they'll be supported throughout the process.
Well, I'm sure that will be some comfort when you're drinking lightning jacks in Victoria Park in East London. You've gone very quiet on me there, Gail.
I don't know if you're making serious questions. I'm talking
I was still trying to work.
I'm talking about crimes against humanity, Ian. I'm talking about the government have said we're heading.
You're encouraging criminality. You're hoping for criminality.
Actually, I'm not, because actually there's a defence in law called the necessity defence. It's not criminal to do things that are necessary to make the changes that are needed.
How do you think that'll play out down at the
look in your history books, Ian. This is how you got the vote. The Chartists broke windows. The suffragettes broke windows. You have people that did mass trespasses. People have peacefully, non-violently, with good integrity, broken the law to make political points in the past. And the issue is that the system has recognised that we're in an emergency. Thankfully, there's those days of climate denial and denying the situation we're in are over. But all that's been happening is carbon emissions are going up. Again, today, there's another report out saying even despite lockdown with the COVID crisis, the emissions are going up. We're not sorting it out.
Do you think when Barclays look at their ledger book, do you think, Gail, they're going to say, look, we are a squillion quid short because people didn't pay their mortgages, but don't worry, we've saved the burning peat bogs of Borneo. Do you imagine that will be their response?
Well, I would hope that Barclays would behave as a super ethical bank. They were based in a Quaker tradition, but unfortunately,
they might just want their money back that they're owed.
Do they? Well, do you know that banks create money out of thin air when they create mortgages? It's not money that they had in the first place. We have a system which allows banks to create this money. Then we all have to make interest payments on it, and people are struggling to pay their mortgages.
Okay.
And yet
so this is ideologically driven, isn't it? This is about your own politics, isn't it?
No, you have two.
I mean, you've got an environmental component to this, but ultimately this is a kind of and I don't say this is a pejorative, more of a kind of a Marxist way of looking at economics.
No, there are many, many different economic ideas out there. And what we're calling for in Money Rebellion is a global citizens' assembly and assemblies at other levels to look at the political economy, to look at some of the issues, like the fact that things break when you buy them. It's called built-in obsolescence. They're designed to break. Like the fact that people can do mass damage and destruction of the environment, and there's no law of ecocide to stop them, to criminalise that. Like the fact that we believe that we have to have infinite growth on a finite planet, even though 1.7 planets are required to produce what we're already doing. We can't live like this. And what we want, Ian, and obviously there's a political spectrum here, want a grown-up conversation about the political economy. It's a choice. You know, Professor
Okay.
Ha-Joon Chang, Cambridge University, said, tell me what you want the economy to be for, and I'll design one for you. And, you know, the father of neoliberalism, Milton Friedman, what he wanted this type of economy to be for, he said, you know, I think it's good because I'm really with him on this one, actually. You know, he basically said, that a market capitalist society would prevent a concentration of power and prevent people from doing the kind of harm which really concentration of power can do. So he doesn't want power to be concentrated, and he doesn't want harm to happen. I agree with him.
All right.
I think,
You know
Mrs.
that
Thatcher also said that you shouldn't have a market economy if the means defeated the end.
Well,
you know, if you
but
have too much
you're aware
pollution.
that capitalism has taken more people out of poverty on this planet than any other sort of ideology or economic template. Listen,
No,
Gail.
so let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Let's have a good look at what's
All
good
right.
in it
Okay.
and what needs to change. That's all we're saying.
Okay, Gail, on that point, I cut in for no other reason than time. Dr. Gail Bradbrook, who is, of course, one of the co-founders of Extinction Rebellion. That is their... What happened to the good old days over there at Exile when you simply just glued your testicles to a police car and had done with? Not that anymore.